On today's episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, we're going to be diving back into a What the Flip segment. What is Brad Marchand doing?
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hockey people, stand up. It's your boy, Big Flip Livingstone, and I am back with my co-host, Steele Roden. It is episode number 11 of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. We are a part of the Locked On Network, and you can catch us across every single platform where you find your favorite content. Spotify, Apple Music, you know the deal. Hit us up, hit that subscribe button. We really, really appreciate it. On today's episode, we are always fired up, but I'm a little bit more fired up than usual, and we're going to be getting into that in a minute, talking about what the flip is happening with Brad Marchand. We'll be feeding you some DFS selections for Thursday's board, and of course, wrapping it up with a bow with big bets at the end of the show, where we try to feed you at least one or two winners, but Steele's on a roll right now, so stay tuned to the end of the episode because this kid is hot right now. He's going to have some more picks for you. You know, I'm still here. I'm throwing out a winner or two, so please stay tuned to the end of the show. But Steele, let's get right into it, brother. What the flip is going on in Boston?
Hey, man, it's just the often Brad Marchand shenanigans that he happens to do every once in a while. And obviously when he's, left pointless in a game, it starts to come out a lot more frequently. So yesterday it was really funny to see at first, at the beginning of the game or somewhat, I think it was in the first period, Tristan Jarry was trying to give a puck to a Pittsburgh Penguins fan, and Brad Marchand comes over and swats the puck off his stick, not wanting that to happen in his house. But, later in the game, he goes after Jarry again, punches him in the face. And then, the refs are pulling him off. They're trying to get him away. He skates back and sticks his hockey stick into Tristan Jarry's face. I think for a lot of people were trying to wonder why he was doing this. I ended up seeing a clip that Jarry took a pretty good swing at Charlie Coyle in front of the net. So maybe that's what got Brad Marchand a little riled up there. Right. But again, what the flip is he doing here? He has a hearing today. This is just typical Brad Marchand shenanigans. And, it might cost his team, for the next couple of games.
I think it already did cost his team because they lost that game against the Pittsburgh Penguins in convincing fashion. Shout out to you for your lock of the night, by the way. Penguins money line, boom, bang. But realistically, if I'm a Pittsburgh Penguins fan and Brad Marchand's out here punching my number one all-star goalie in the face, I'm fired up this morning because that's some BS straight up from a guy who's now been suspended 7 times in his career. 7 times. I don't even care if this is a one-time thing. You're punching a goalie blindside in the side of the head. That should be 2 games. That just does not set a good precedent. Goaltenders are not fighters. Yes, he did take a swing at Coyle. Yes, he probably it looks like he said some nasty stuff to get Marchand's blood boiling. But come on now. This guy is a 7-time repeat offender. What the flip is he thinking seriously? The punch is one thing. To come back and then spear the guy in the face, you're just costing your team at this point. Luckily for Bruins supporters, and, for whatever reason, give your head a shake for doing that. But this is just selfish. It's downright selfish. It's obviously he gets in his own head and it lets it go. All day has talent, all day has offensive talent, and is one of the most consistent performers over the past 7 or 8 seasons. So thankfully he does back it up. But honestly, the in-person hearing today, I could see this being, I'm going to say 3 or 4 games, but it's so significant for Boston right now at this stretch of the season and we're going to talk about the potential missing of Bergeron in a minute, but what are you doing, Brad? Seriously, that was a really, really boneheaded move. Luckily, Jarry is not injured because that could have been a whole other thing. But still, obviously I'm fired up about this and it's got my blood boiling. But really, at the end of the day, he just cost his team in the end.
Yeah, and that's the thing. A lot of people, you love to play with him, you hate to play against him. Not just the type of player that Brad Marchand is. And,
Yeah.
You're completely right. Like, what is he thinking? He's costing his team. And, it was at the end of the game. His team had already lost. So, like, I understand that, but it's for the next couple of games, potentially being suspended. He has an in-person hearing now. So it's going to affect his team drastically because, like you've mentioned, they're in the play. We're still halfway through the season, but if they're going to be missing games, they're caught in a playoff race. They're in fourth place right now. Teams are trying to catch up to them, to the Boston Bruins. So it might cost his team, especially like you mentioned, Patrice Bergeon might be banged up a little bit right now. We don't know what might be potentially happening with him over the next little bit. So for me, Brad Marchand, it's just the typical type of player that he is. You hate to play against him. You love to play with him. So, it's typical Brad Marchand. I'm not really sure if he'll get 4 games for that. Like you said, Tristan Jarry wasn't injured. But again, what the heck was what was Jarry's teammates even doing? They weren't even helping him a little bit out there. Like if I was on that ice and Tristan Jarry was my goalie, I would have gone after Brad Marchand. I would have tackled him to the ice and gave him a little 1-2 combo.
Exactly. Yeah. The whole game seemed a little bit wild, and yes, those major incidents happened near the end of the game. But just even the thing with the puck and then whipping it away, it's like, come on, Brad. Like, be better. Work against the narrative against yourself. Like when he does things like this, it's just, well, there you go. There's the Brad Marchand everyone loves to hate. But at the end of the day, couple that with the potential injury to Patrice Bergeon, which is what I'd like to shift to now. This could be very, very serious to the Boston Bruins playoff chances here because, Bergeron runs into Crosby in the third period. He takes a nasty fall. He hits his head on the way down. He looks buzzed on his way up. We're just purely speculating at this point in terms of how long he could be out if he is out. But this is a player that's going to be 37 years old this summer, Steele. And whenever the head is involved, like when we talked about with Matthews, really, really hard to project. But let's say Marchand's out for 3 to 4 and Bergeron misses a week or two. You might have to tune in next week and we're going to have to talk about an episode where how are you going to fill your Boston Bruins holes on your fantasy lineup, because this could be potentially crippling to the Boston Bruins playoff chances.
Yeah, and it's probably going to be crippling to fantasy owners out there who own Patrice Bergeron and Brad Marchand. Like looking at it, I have Patrick Laine on my fantasy team, and nice. I kind of compare this incident to what happened to him back in early November. He went behind the net, got tangled up with a guy, and next thing you know, he tore his oblique, I'm pretty sure, and he's out for a month and a half. So, it's one of those plays that it doesn't look very serious. Like Sidney Crosby and Bergeron's skate blades caught together, and that's why he fell. It didn't look serious at the time, but it's just one of those coincidental plays that you never know what might happen and how serious it is. And you never know if Patrice Bergeon is going to be out for a short period of time or if he could be out for a long period of time like Patrick Laine was back in November. It's just one of those coincidental plays. You don't really see or really know how long the guy's going to be out. So again, once Flip and I figure out, or once, the news comes out, what Brad Marchand's suspension might be, if he's suspended, if Patrice Bergeron is out for an extended period of time, we're going to have to touch base back on this situation, help you with, if you're one of the fantasy owners out there who own these players.
Exactly. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to help you fill those holes, which a guy like Bergeron, seriously, it's not just the offensive numbers that he chips in with. 12 goals, 23 assists for 35 points in 43 games. Sure. But he does all the little things. I talk about this all the time when I really like a player. The non-flashy areas, the takeaways, the Corsi numbers, the hits, the block shots, the killing penalties. But also, before I finish up on Bergeron, 63% in the faceoff dot this year, winning 63% of his draws. Possession is a big part of the Bruins game, big part of any team's game, but especially for the Bruins who really count on that top line. I think this could actually be, potentially a crippling blow to their playoff chances, like I mentioned. But what I do want to mention right away before I forget, Steele, it's BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. We got the Super Bowl coming up this weekend. So make sure you check out betonline.net. It remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season, other than Locked On. And it's not just football. BetOnline has up-to-the-minute info on pro and college hoops, NHL, boxing, UFC, along with real-time updates on all the current games. Do not wait to take advantage of all the new amazing offers. BetOnline, where the game starts. And thanks again for making Locked On Fantasy Hockey your first listen every single day. Please make sure you hammer that subscribe button and check us out on Spotify, YouTube, and anywhere you get your content. But also make sure to check out Olympic Daily Hockey presented by Locked On NHL. It's a bonus podcast covering everything you need to know about Beijing. You can find it on the Locked On NHL podcast feed. And just like us, it is free wherever you get your podcasts. Steel brother, this is your time to shine. DFS, we've been picking some good players lately. If you've been listening, the Boone Jenners of the world, these fantasy value guys that we have been picking for you, they've been hitting. So, crank up the volume. Make sure you've downloaded this episode so you can listen to it again later, because my boy Steel is going to run away with these DFS selections again, and I'm excited to hear what you have, my friend.
Yeah, I try to give you, my best suggestions, a little insight into what I'm thinking heading into the matchups. And I like the matchups Thursday night way better than Wednesday's night. Wednesday's night matchups were just a little bit tough for me. Looking at Thursdays, I'm going back to the Columbus Blue Jackets. They hit a home run for me on Tuesday night against the Washington Capitals. Patrick Laine, 9 points in his last 3 games. He had a 3-point game against the Washington. Yeah, Flip. 3-point game against the Washington Capitals. He has a 3 straight multi-goal game for that matter as well. So he's been finding the back of the net, and I absolutely love it. Like I mentioned, he's on my fantasy team, so he's been helping me out a lot in that department. But again, Boone Jenner, 5 points in his last 4 games. He had a 2-point night on Tuesday against the Washington Capitals as well. And especially going up against the Buffalo Sabres, who you never really know what's going to happen, because sometimes they can literally just, put the gas on and just absolutely blaze someone out. And then, sometimes they just get absolutely, dumped on by the other opponents. So I like the Columbus Blue Jackets in this situation going up against the Buffalo Sabres for my first matchup of the night, Flip. As well as you could honestly easily throw a guy like Jakub Voracek in there. He shouldn't be very expensive. I'd probably put him at around $3,500. He's on that first power play with Patrick Laine and Boone Jenner. And then on the back end, a guy like Adam Bockvist or Zach Werenski. Those guys have been absolutely studs the last couple of games, as well as, Zach Werenski is one of those guys who's, leaning towards being a top 10 defenseman. I think he's probably in the top 20 right now, maybe top 15. So his game has really stepped up, since Seth Jones has left the organization. But for me, there's a lot of guys in that game you could easily find some value in, some value in cheap guys like Adam Bockvist, like I mentioned.
Yeah, I think it's fun. This happens almost every episode. You talk about a game in DFS that you're liking, and it almost immediately translates to what I want to talk about for my bets in the next segment. So I'm not going to go off too much on this game, but everything you're saying is lining up for what I like in this game for my pick for my bet. You're spot on with the Laine's hot streak. He's actually the first Columbus Blue Jacket to score multiple goals in 3 straight games. He looks to be finally healthy, gelling with the players in Columbus. Columbus has been one of those teams the last few years that, you don't really know what's going on there. What's their strengths? What's their weaknesses? They're a little mixed bag of everything. So that makes it really hard to predict from a fantasy betting DFS perspective. But in this situation, and, not to give away too much about what I think for my pick, I think this could be a very high scoring game for both sides. And you mentioned some of the value guys on Columbus with Boone Jenner. I think he's, his price might be going up a bit because of his recent hot streak. But also I would look at some guys on the Buffalo Sabres, because we know Columbus's defensive game isn't the strongest. Alex Tuck has been red hot since coming back from injury. He might be a bit of a premium price because he's playing on the top line and he's been so hot. But I don't even mind a guy that you've talked about before on the Sabres and Dylan Cousins as well. So I think there is some value over on the Sabres, Steel, and I don't want to take your thunder too much here, but I just wanted to note that the Blue Jackets blue line game is not exactly the strongest when it comes to the defensive side. So I would look at maybe some value guys on the Sabres as well, and Cousins and Tuck. I don't know what you think about that, pal.
I like that you mentioned the Buffalo Sabres, because I was even going to mention Tage Thompson, because he's playing with Alex Tuck on that top line, and he is my boy. He loves to pepper he loves to put the puck on net. That's what Coach always said to me when I was back playing hockey in my day, even though I'm only 22 years old, so it wasn't that long ago.
Did you walk uphill both ways to school, or did you take a Tesla to school?
It wasn't a Tesla, but it was a pretty sweet ride. But yeah, Tage Thompson, on that top line with Alex Tuck, like you mentioned, that's your boy right there. You've talked about him a little bit. But there's always some value on any team playing in a night. You can always find a guy who sticks out more than the rest. So that's what we try to give you. I'll throw some sleeper picks, in my opinion, for these matchups. The Pittsburgh Penguins, who we just mentioned in the first segment, against the Ottawa Senators. You could go with a guy like Jeff Carter, Kasperi Kapanen on that second line, I believe they are on now, because Evgeny Malkin is out of the lineup. So those guys right there, you can find some lineup, especially going up against an Ottawa Senators team that, they're young, they're talented, but again, they have a lot of injuries to the team. Not really sure where the goalies stand out right now. So for me, you can find some value in Jeff Carter and Kasperi Kapanen. We just talked about a guy like Garnett Hathaway a couple of episodes ago on the Washington Capitals. He actually buried one in that game against the Columbus Blue Jackets. I would probably put him at around $3,000, $3,300 as well. So that's another cheap option. And Flip, just looking at the matchups, there's a lot of juicy games, a lot of great matchups. You could also go with guys in the Tampa Bay Colorado game.
Why not? That the one thing I would be worried about taking guys in that game is this could be, I've talked about it a bunch this week, this could be one of those measuring stick playoff type games where you don't see a ton of scoring. But obviously, if you want to load up on some studs on the Lightning and Avalanche, even look down the lineup a little bit to a guy like Valeri Nichushkin for Colorado, who's been solid this year, or even if you want to talk about value, and I'm going to switch gears to another game and I don't want to get too far off of it, my boy Blake Coleman on the Calgary Flames in that second line with Andre Mangiapane and Michael Backlund. Look off the top lines a little bit if you're looking for some value. Like Steele always says, you can never go wrong with the top studs on teams like the Leafs. But in this situation, in Calgary, on a road game, late game for Toronto on the West Coast, why not sprinkle a little bit on some of those depth guys on Calgary as well? We're bouncing around a little bit here, but the value is there for the taking. I think that's what Steele's getting at here, and what looks to be a decent board for DFS selection, Steele, overall.
Yeah, I like that you brought in the Calgary Flames, because again, we don't know what's happening with Austin Matthews. The lines might be shifted around a little bit, and especially being on the road, the goaltending for the Maple Leafs hasn't been the best of recently as well. So again, going with those depth guys on the Calgary Flames is never a bad idea. They have been really, really helpful for that organization this season. Another game that
in a row, but the goaltending's garbage.
Yeah, they've won 6 in a row, but that's because the goal scoring from Mitch Marner and Matthews has been absolutely tremendous over that.
They've been letting in way too many goals. You're spot on. The goaltending has not exactly been consistent. I just, I got to throw these in there to keep people awake just in case they are,
of course,
in a self-driving Tesla. Wake up.
We got to make sure they're listening.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you always find some depth value in games like that. I was also looking at another matchup. On Tuesday night, I happened to go with the Montreal Canadiens. It didn't pan out for me that way because they got absolutely dusted by the New Jersey Devils 7-1. Yeah. But again, I'm going against the New Jersey Devils Thursday night. The St. Louis Blues at home against the Devils. I'm taking guys like Vladimir Tarasenko and Jordan Kyrou. They're both on the second line. You could even go with a guy like Robert Thomas. He probably is a cheap option as well, but Vladimir Tarasenko and Jordan Kyrou, I'd probably put them at around 5,000, maybe 5,500. It all depends. I would put them in that price range. But going up against this, terrible team in the New Jersey Devils, I would go with guys like that. And I would also throw in Jordan Binnington for my goalie option. I think this is a huge game for him. He's lost 3 of his last 5 games. He's had 23. He's let in 23 goals in that span. So for me, this is a huge game for him to get his mojo back, get back to being comfortable and confidence in that crease, especially against a team like the New Jersey Devils.
Yeah, the New Jersey Devils is a complete dumpster fire in their own net. I know they just got a win. They just got a win Tuesday night, so good for them. But going up against any kind of quality team, offensive team, going against the Devils, you gotta back those players that you mentioned. Jordan Kyrou also maybe a bit jazzed up after dusting McDavid and the fastest skater over the weekend. He's a young guy that could bring him just some added juice for the second half. So I don't hate that angle, Steele. I do not hate that angle.
Yeah, and for me, I have Vladimir Tarasenko on my fantasy team, and he's been an absolute stud for my fantasy team as well. I did mention that a couple episodes ago. Just before we jump into the Big Time Bets segment, this episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now almost impossible for local chain auto parts stores to have what you need in stock. There's so many intimidating and often pointless questions, and it just doesn't really make sense. On top of that, you have to wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer and only choosing what they carry in the warehouse. And for that, it just rarely happens that they have it in the warehouse at the time. You'll be able to save time. You'll be able to save money using Rock Auto. And why would you even want to choose to spend 30, 50, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or a car dealership? For example, if you buy a Honda Odyssey fuel pump, it's usually around $350. If you buy the same pump from Rock Auto, it's $215. You're saving pretty much $100 there, $120 there from Rock Auto. So go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Remember, Rock Auto has amazing selections, very reliable low prices, all the parts your car will ever need at rockauto.com. Thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every day. Remember that we are free and available on all platforms as well as on YouTube. So make sure you go check us out on all those platforms and YouTube. Follow and subscribe. Flip and I appreciate all the support you give us. So thank you so much for that. With that being said, Flip, it's time for your favorite segment. Big time bets with Big Time Bets with Flip and Steele here. And like we mentioned, there's a lot of better matchups Thursday night. I like what I was seeing on the board here for the odds. And I'll throw it over to you for your first bet because I'm really interested to see what you have to say here.
Yeah, no problem, brother. We need some music for this part. We need some graphics are in the work. Don't you worry. This segment's gonna have all the bells and whistles because this is why you tune in. Steele and I are trying to put some money in your pocket every single night. So for tonight, I'm looking at things a little bit differently because the recent trends suggest Carolina in Boston, they don't do that well. Perennially, they struggle in Boston, but I'm liking the Carolina Hurricanes on the road in Boston, plus 106 on the money line. You're getting some good value here in a good spot. Sure, the trends say Carolina struggles in Boston. I think they have 2 wins out of their last 9 trips there. This is a situation where you already know what's going on with the Bruins. Okay, you potentially have the captain going down with an injury. It could be a concussion. We don't know. At the very least, he's likely to miss this game at the very, very bare minimum. Brad Marchand, again, book is out. We don't know how many games, but for this situation, likely to miss as well. Those are 2 massive pieces off of their offensive game. They lose their number 1 faceoff guy and one of the best faceoff guys in the league in Patrice Bergeon. I think this is a huge bounce back spot for Carolina, who just got beat by the Toronto Maple Leafs and Ottawa Senators on their current road trip. The Carolina Hurricanes are for real. This isn't just a start of a trend. This is a flash in the pan. I like the Carolina Hurricanes to turn it around. I like the odd. I like the situation. So my first pick of the night, Carolina Hurricanes on the money line. Give me that plus 106 juice. I'm feeling it, Steele.
Well, I'm not going to dive too much into my first pick because that's exactly what I had. Carolina Hurricanes on the money line. Flip and I, we're on the same page right now. We're reading the same book. So I've got the Carolina Hurricanes as well. The money line odd could change based on the potential of, Brad Marchand and Patrice Bergeon being out of the lineup. But for right now, plus 106, like Flip said. So I'm taking it every single day. I'll lean over to my second and third pick. I actually have 4, but my second and third pick are from the same game.
Okay.
It's the Tampa Bay Lightning money line at plus 105. I'm taking it because Nathan McKinnon is out of the lineup. Darcy Kemper has not been great this season, so I like the money line on the road for the Tampa Bay Lightning. But again, I'm also taking the under 6 goals at plus 105 in this game. There is a lot of great talented forwards and scoring on both of these teams. We already know that, but with Nathan McKinnon being out of the lineup, you got an absolute stud in net for the Tampa Bay Lightning and Andrei Vasilevsky. They've got great defensemen on both teams. So for me, I'm going with the under 6. It could potentially move up to 6.5. So again, I'm still taking the under at whether it's 6 or 6.5, but the money line and under 6 for me in that Tampa Bay Colorado game.
I like your under angle with this deal, honestly. Sure, if at first glance, Tampa to high scoring club, Colorado high scoring club, let's take the over. Maybe peel it back a little bit and look at it how we've been discussing in terms of these games right into the start of the second half between two. Those are 2 right up at the top Stanley Cup favorites and on the Vegas betting board, whether you like it or not. So this is one of those, said it again, I'll say it again. Measuring stick games for a team in the East and a team in the West that might have to go through each other for the Stanley Cup. That usually means low scoring. So I could see that happening. Still, I like your angle there. I'm feeling it. The odd too, give me some of that. My lock of the night, good sir. I'm also going with a total. You talked about it already in terms of the Columbus Blue Jackets. I'm looking at that Blue Jackets Sabres game. The number's at 5.5. That doesn't make any sense to me. Number 1, Blue Jackets are red hot offensively. Number 2, the Sabres can't stop a beach ball. I don't understand why this is 5.5. So like you mentioned in terms of the good odd on Carolina, jump on this odd now as well. Like the second you hear it, hit your sport book, go to betonline.net. Make sure you hammer that favorable odd. Shout outs to BetOnline. But seriously, I'm loving this pick. I'm going to hammer this myself. Over 5.5. This number could easily be higher. 5 of the last 7 games, Buffalo's faced Columbus. It's gone over the total. 4 of the Blue Jackets' last 5 games overall have gone over the total. Patrick Laine is red hot. Good for you, Steele. 6 goals in his last 3 games, like we talked about. And the Sabres are just bad. They've allowed the 7th most goals this season, and they allow the 5th highest goals against per game at 3.47 per 60 minutes. Like, come on, 3.5 goals per 60 minutes. This game's going over the total. Let's not overthink this one. Big Flip's lock of the night for Thursday is over 5.5. Give me that all day, Steele.
Well, you already mentioned it that, the Columbus Blue Jackets have been absolutely terrible as well with the Sabres defensively. So over 5.5, I think I'm going to sprinkle some change on that as well. Make some money Thursday night. My last and final pick is the St. Louis Blues puck line. Like I already mentioned, they are going up against the New Jersey Devils. The Devils are on the road. The Blues are at home, obviously. And, like I mentioned, I feel like this is just a bounce back kind of game for Jordan Binnington. He needs a big win. And with all of the talented forwards that they have in St. Louis, I feel like they're going to win by more than 2 goals. But my lock of the night is actually the Carolina Hurricanes money line. That's where I'm going with this one. Like you mentioned, it doesn't trend well for the Hurricanes in Boston, but with the potential losses of 2 big guys in Boston, I'm going with the Hurricanes. That's my lock of the night. Flip's lock of the night, over 5.5 goals in that Sabres Columbus game. And pencil it in, lock it in there, put your money down, and make some money on Thursday night. Thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every day. If you want more gambling advice on what you should pick every day, make your second listen Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q with insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all platforms, just like this podcast right here. So make sure you go to YouTube, subscribe to the channel, and follow this podcast right now on your favorite podcast platform. You'll get the latest episode of Locked On Fantasy Hockey every single day as soon as it's available. And again, we say this every time. Make sure you go leave a comment on the YouTube channel. Message us on Twitter. We'll try to message you back as soon as possible with any answers that you need. Let us know what you want to hear on the show as well. If you want to hear us discuss a potential trade that might happen, just anything that comes to mind. We appreciate all the support. And thank you again so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with your bets. Make sure you put your bets in with the lock of our night. And we shall see you back here again tomorrow night.